لا إله إلا الله محمد رسول الله. There's only one God.
Bismillah, alhamdulillah, assalamu alaikum, peace be unto you. I'm Eddie, your host, and you're watching The Dean Show. We're here on CAN TV 36, Wednesdays at midnight, and if you miss us Wednesdays, the following day, Thursdays at 2 p.m. Now, we're going to be talking about something, there's some confusion out there. We know that design indicates a designer, that there is an orchestrator behind this universe and everything in it. And when you bring the definition of God, who He is, it has to be simple. It can't be confusing. It can't have any ambiguity in it. And we have learned that this Creator has sent messengers throughout time, and they've all come with the same message. Submit to the one God. Worship Him alone. Your 2-year-old can understand that. It's very simple. When we come back,